What's up, everyone? Brad Borne here, and with the last Fancy Pants Adventures game, I made quite a few videos during development. I like talking about the game development. I like talking about the games as I make them. With Super Fancy Pants Adventures, we just never had the time to do that. And now that things have settled down a bit, I thought it would be fun to kind of go back and talk through some of the design decisions or just parts of the game that'd make for some good videos. So for this one, first one, first post-development, what were we calling them before? I don't remember. Oh my god, so long it's been. I wanted to talk about controls on mobile, and I think this is actually really interesting because the new kind of design motif right now is very anti-skeumorphism. It's basically trying to make well, I guess when touchscreen interfaces started, there was a tendency to make things in the interfaces look like things in the real world. That's kind of the desktop metaphor on Windows, and it extended to touchscreens. That's the joke. You know, somebody 3D printed a icon from Microsoft Word, and it's a floppy disk, because nobody thinks of a floppy disk as anything but the save icon anymore. And so with some of the latest updates on mobile, Apple especially made a big deal of going through and making sure all the buttons no longer looked like buttons and all the scroll wheels no longer looked like scroll wheels, and nothing really looked like its use anymore. And to an extent, I feel like people were just really big on this because they were bored of everything else. I feel like right now it's just kind of been taken too far, and why I'm going through this is when we launched Super Fancy Pants on iOS, the control and interface was made to kind of fit that minimalist design. All the arrows were very, very subtle, and that worked well for me because I've been playing the game forever, and I pretty instinctively knew where all the buttons were. But I don't think that worked as well for newer players, and it ended up feeling a bit more unintuitive than the actual layout should be. Because I spent a ton of time thinking about the actual button layout and how everything worked, and trying to keep it as minimalist as possible while still keeping the entire control scheme in for a mobile game. That was the main goal with Super Fancy Pants on mobile, is to keep the entire full release and not make a watered down runner, one button sort of game, one button platformer. So I think there's enough of those already. So for this, I had to kind of rethink how a lot of the buttons work. There's no up and down over here, but you have your up and down here. And so down's duck and jump. So you have your kind of two opposite movements. So left and right is, something you never want to do at the same time. Same with jump and duck. What's maybe even more different from the controller, the attack turns into a much larger button now. So you have your normal attack, up attack, and your ink shot can now aim up and down. And if you've played the mobile version, you might have noticed this is a newer version, which is much more prominent than before. And I spent a lot of time thinking about different control schemes and how the controls work. And I think there's something about having the circles here, having these actually look like buttons, because usually your thumbs are just hiding the arrows. And I tried to set it up so that it's very easy to think through, just up and down here, and then kind of move back and forth for different functions, and then just left and right, and that's all you have to think about. And that's why this entire thing is just left and right. You can press on any part of the screen. But there's something psychologically about seeing the actual button look like a button, and not even, I don't mean like seeing it and trying to find it with your thumb, but actually feeling like the button is a button. And I think that's something that this whole anti-skeumorphism movement sort is lacking. It's forgetting how things feel to interact with. I think one of the main examples for me is the dials in the alarm clock on iOS. I don't really use Android, so I'm sorry, don't have any examples there. But they used to feel very spinnable, and I always thought that was one of the best uses of the touchscreen, because you have these things. Oh man, I'm trying to think about when there was a time when touchscreen phones weren't even a thing, but when they first came out, they had to prove that replacing an entire set of buttons with one screen made sense, really. And I thought one of the greatest arguments for it was the dials on the alarm clock, just because they felt so cool to spin. And I always wish some game used some sort of flicking and spinning mechanism like that, but I don't know if I've seen that yet. But then in the update, what was that, iOS 10, then 11 kind of started fixing things. In iOS 10, it turned into just a series of numbers that were just moving up and down, less so than like a roulette wheel spinning. And I thought something was really lost there, and I probably should have paid more attention to that when doing the controls. Because it's really not about how they look. I think it's more about how they feel to interact with these dials and buttons and such. And even before, I made sure to have a feedback, because it kind of glowed before, so after you pressed it down, you'd still see the glow up here, so that the player would always know what button they're pressing, since there's no tactile feedback, of course. And even that, it was just very, very subtle, and it didn't feel, because something getting bigger when it's pressed is a very skeuomorphized idea. On a touchscreen, a button can do anything when you press it. Doesn't really matter. It's just a bunch of pixels. But actually having it feel like it's doing something, I don't know. I also wanted to play through a bit of the later levels here, just because I all the Let's Play videos online right now are just in the very beginning of the game. Actually, I should probably go back. I'm going to go back to... I started talking, I forget what I was even going through in the first place. Sorry if this is going out of focus. I'm trying to do this on SLR, so it's not specifically a video camera, but it's going to look much better than anything else I have. But thinking about... Sorry, I still say too much. I am way out of practice. I started doing the videos to get better about talking about the game, and so I'm way out of practice. So hopefully this all sounds good, or at least you guys love game design so much that it's worth listening to anyway. But, well, there you go. I just did that. So that's one thing, a touch interface can always change as the player's doing different things. So, if you're sliding this way, there's not really a point in having buttons there anymore. So I just get rid of them, and now you kind of intuitively know which way you're pushing. And something even more subtle, I don't know if anybody's even noticed that this is in there, but I found myself, I'd be like over here, and then I'd quickly switch over here, and you can see my thumb's still on that arrow. So I just had the game say, well, if you do it quickly, it probably means you're trying to go back and forth. So no matter where you are, if you switch back and forth. But that's a lot of game design, trying to interpret what the player's trying to do and make sure it wouldn't mess with, something else in the game. And if it doesn't, then just go with what you think they're probably trying to do, this way, that way. And then, not have that mess up anything else. Like if you're doing around here, you don't want them to start running in weird directions. So the ink boarding is actually the biggest challenge for controls, because once you take out the D-pad, now you have, what do you have there? There's nothing controlling it. And I always thought of, ended up the most difficult thing to describe in game. I think it ended up saying slide your thumb to control it. But I still don't think that really is accurate enough or describes it enough. And I think of it more as like a trackball. So if you're going forward, you can actually kind of nudge upward and you'll turn your direction. And the best thing to do is watch that little white arrow. I actually added that for touchscreen and just left it in the computer version too. So if you watch that arrow, don't really watch Fancy Pants Man's direction. Watch which direction that arrow is, and if you nudge it up, he just kind of goes up. So if you want to make sure you're going all the way up, just pull all the way up, pull all the way that way, and he's going to follow that direction that you're sliding, not where you're pointing at. So tapping doesn't do anything, but if you slide it gently up, it'll nudge his direction upward. Do you guys like this type of video, like talking about actual design? As a developer, I love watching other people talk about kind of their own thought process. I don't know if you guys are mostly players or if there's any developers picking up checking this out. But as a developer, I find behind the scenes of pretty much anything extremely interesting. So that's the sort of videos I like making. And now that the game's out, I can kind of go through where we ended up. So it's a lot less in flux now. I never turned the sound on the game. Well, hope you guys don't mind. Ah, well. And, let me know what kind of videos y'all want to see. I'd like to go through some of the later levels on the touchscreen to kind of show how well they work. And, of course, once this update gets out, I'd love to hear what you guys think about the touch controls, if you prefer the arrows or if they're just too much. The biggest issue I see with them having the big circles there is if you're streaming on a big screen, they look gigantic, because then they're just taking up a pretty big corner. On the phone, I think they're fine, and that's really where your thumbs are anyway. So I actually, when you're using the touch controls, everything's shifted upward to make this a bit more of a dead zone. But I could see that being a bit weirder on if you're streaming the mobile game. But you should probably just use a controller. It's way easier. No, it's like the worst advice. Just use a controller. No, I want to make sure that touch controls are good enough that nobody feels like they need a controller, that the game's not compromised. Like I said, it's really the entire philosophy of getting the game on mobile was to not compromise the core experience. But mobile was actually a pretty big influence in general, with the onslaught of mobile runner games. I thought the feeling, the sense of flow and momentum that they captured was really good. And I always just wished, why can't I see that in a platformer? So a lot of the, especially on escaping the caverns, there's a cat. Why? Why is there a cat? Okay, bye cat. I tried to capture the sense of movement from like the mobile platformers, and at the same time giving the play, not taking control away from the player, so that they could, I feel like they can handle that. Mobile gamers deserve better. And I'm still I'm looking through a camera cord, so sorry if this isn't me at my best playing my own game. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who are better at it than I am. But yeah, I just really wanted to get on camera and show that the touch controls, I feel like they work really well, even before the update. I think the game was very playable with them. And I'm just really proud we're able to get onto the App Store without, watering down the experience as a platformer. And, oh man, late spoilers. I hope you guys have played this game already. But I don't know, it's probably good to show off some of the later features. If you've only played the Flash games. You remember those guys? Fancy Pants Adventures Online? Very, very old series there. Might be good to show off what's new in this game, because the beginning of it does stay pretty classic, and then once we introduce the ink, and I'd like to get back on and talk about stuff like this later, the combat more generally, and the new additions and such, ink shot. And yes, that is from the years of emails asking me to give Fancy Pants Man a gun, which, it's an old friend. I'll keep that. I don't know. We'll keep him spoilers. Yeah, Fancy Pants finally got a gun, so you can stop emailing me about that. Actually, I had to do that just because it seemed like the weirdest request and just the most bizarre thing to give Fancy Pants Man. That I kind of took that as a challenge, honestly. So all right, I'm gonna, let's get some volume here. I'm gonna do this challenge on mobile. Yeah, you don't even get a line in direct sound. Sorry, guys. Hopefully the mic up here is picking this up. I'm gonna go ahead and do this challenge and sign out. And again, yeah, let me. Oh wow, okay. All right, I'm moving this cable or strap. There we go. Okay, I can actually do well here, guys. I gotta represent my own game. Definitely, yeah, I want to do a combat video. It seems like, it's funny to me. Most of the videos I've seen, guys, I love watching Let's Plays, so if anybody posts any of that, please send them my way. I love seeing how other people play the game. There we go. Most people stop jumping on things and start just fighting them, which is funny because I think jumping on stuff still feels... I blame the volume on that one. Still feels really good until you get to the inkies, of course. But then they don't really spam everything. Like, I feel like once you got enough ink, guys, the combat's kind of meant to be, spammed at everything. People get very conservative with fighting. So I don't know. Maybe I'll make a video about that later. All right, who knows if you guys are used to my rambling at this point. It's been so long since I've done a video. But yeah, let me know what kind of videos you guys like to see. If you make any videos with Fancy Pants, please let me know. And I'm going to post some about this on Twitter, but I honestly have just not seen enough Let's Plays of Super Fancy Pants Adventures. So if anyone is up for making one, I'll jump on stream. I'll record with you. We can talk about more behind-the-scenes stuff, or just, I don't know, I'll be your in-game tutorial. If you've never played the game before. But come on, we need some more Super Fancy Pants videos up on YouTube or on Twitch. So let me know if that's something you'd be up for. Alright guys, see you later. Bye.